You idiot!
This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. I had the best words. Tolerated. I know words. Mike Pounds. I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid. Anonymous, really anonymous. I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. I had the best words. God bless the United States.
How you like that, boy?
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation, everybody, welcome to the show. It is Thursday. We got a show for y'all. It's gonna be fun. Is Jack Meoff gonna be on the show? I have not gotten the pleasure of that of setting up that interview yet. Fun times. But I don't know. We'll see. Hey everybody, welcome. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. We've got a fun show. Also disastrous. We have an update on the Arizona audit for the elections. Yes, that is still going on. Almost 6 months. No, almost 6 months since the inauguration of President Biden. They are still talking about overturning the election. I know, insanity, and it's worse than you think. Then we have a breaking exclusive story on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Oh my God, what did she do? Well, according to conservatives, she is in big trouble. She has been caught, exposed, breaking. So good. We've got Geraldo versus, like, Geraldo based? What is going on? We have Bernie Sanders and the progressives versus selling Israel weapons. And then we have the most restrictive abortion ban in Texas. And so we've got a lot of stories here, a lot of important stuff to get to. Some fun stories, some horrifying stories. And so that's the usual mix that you see in the show. So please like and share. Very, very important that you do so. In fact, I'm gonna do so right now. I'm not gonna like my own stream, but I am going to share it, as well as stuff that you can help the show. Oh, you know what? I did forget to change the name of the stream, y'all. Thank you for letting me know. I am so super ass late, and so yeah, I got to do that right now too. Thank you on that. See, I am all sorts of behind today. Let's see. Arizona audit update. Geraldo, Bongino. Let's see. Yep. Thank you for letting me know. It is one of those weeks. Let's see. Yes, again, thank you so much for that. It's, again, been a day. But don't worry, all fresh content today. Let me just go here and update some of these titles. We're doing it live, folks. We're doing it live. Fun times. All right. That should fix it all. Thank you, TabSab, for subscribing with Prime. Appreciate that. All right. Now we got it. We got it. Nailed it. Now let's go into the show. All right. Stay. All right. The Arizona ballot audit continues as MAGA supporters desperately try to prove their unhinged conspiracy theories about the election. These conspiracies, of course, include searching ballots for traces of bamboo in order to prove some sort of weird Chinese, I guess, interference, looking for watermarks with, I don't know, infrared lights, or the UV blue lights or whatever, or even allegations that Maricopa County election officials were shredding ballots for Trump, feeding them to the chickens, and then incinerating the chickens in order to hide the Wow. Okay. All right. That is a very deep rabbit hole. You're going to need a little bit more than a snorkel to dive down that. You're going to need some scuba gear. Okay. Oof. Now, according to a report, elections observer Jennifer Morell expected the Arizona audit to be crazy and disorganized, and when she went to see it earlier this month. But even she happened to be stunned at just the level of unhinged and of disorganization that it really ended up being. And so, writing in the Washington Post, Morell said the Arizona audit is, quote, even worse than you think, as its procedures are so sloppy that any conclusions that it would reach would not be taken at face value. In more than a decade of working on elections, audits, and recounts across the country, I've never seen one this mismanaged. Yeah. So now, look, it's pretty easy. It's going to be pretty easy for MAGA chuds to dismiss this as, you're just mad because of deep state propaganda, and you don't want us to find the truth. Yeah, the real truth that we have, the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. We're gonna find it. We're gonna find the fraud, and then we're gonna reinstall Donald Trump as president of the United States. You're just trying to stop it. But hold on here. When you look at the details, I'm sure even one of the most hardened MAGA supporters has to be swayed, at least when it comes to the details of why this is bad. In fact, one person, Morello says this: I was stunned to see spinning conveyor wheels whizzing hundreds of ballots past counters who struggled to mark on a tally sheet each voter selection for the presidential and Senate races. They only had a few seconds to record what they saw. Occasionally, I saw a counter look up, realize they missed a ballot, grab the wheel to stop it. This process sets them up to make so many mistakes. Now, if you actually care about being able to recount the ballots to get a proper count, well, then you would look at that system. You'd have to look at that system and be like, that's not good. That's really, really inefficient. You're going to miss things. And what if you miss those 2 or 3 Trump ballots that you might not have caught before? I mean, do they care at all about election? No, of course not. Obviously. Nobody can work accurately in those conditions. Now, how are you supposed to count the ballots if you can't see the ballots? Doomed to fail. And again, even the most hardcore MAGA guy has to look at that and be like, oh, well, that's not good. We might want to slow those down. So, we need to actually maybe look at the actual ballots. I don't know. It's like an episode of I Love Lucy. True. And again, that's just touching on the functional stuff. The crazy, oh man, here comes the insanity, okay? According to Morrell, ballots were being inspected for traces of, as I mentioned, bamboo, and the auditors would try to flag ballots for having, get this, stains on them. Stains. At one point, she said, I overheard some volunteers excitedly discussing a stain on a ballot. Quote, it looks like a Cheeto finger, one said, like someone touched it with cheese dust. That had to be suspicious, the teammate agreed. Why would somebody come to the polls with cheese powder on their hands? To which I say,
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
I present to you the theory that it was none other than Chester Cheetah that rigged the election in 2020. They got him. They got him, folks. Mission accomplished. They got the fraud. Nailed it. Oh my God. This is so utterly ridiculous. I mean, how is Cheesy Fingers evidence of voter fraud? It doesn't prove anything other than the fact that the person who filled it out, who did the ballot, who did the voting, was probably hungry before they went to vote. I mean, you could eat Cheetos in your car before you vote. In fact, Morrell points out, quote, I've seen ballots stained with almost anything you can imagine. And believe me, I can imagine a lot. Okay. Including coffee, grease, and yes, cheese powder. This is not, okay. Again, think of the people who come in from work to vote. Okay. They could be covered in who knows what and get it all over the ballots. That doesn't mean fraud. That's not evidence. That's pure desperation. Oh boy. And in further evidence of the insanity, you now also have Arizona GOP Chairwoman Kelly Ward threatening party officials with arrest for not supporting the efforts of the quote unquote cyber ninjas. I mean, the Daily Beast is reporting that the audit has been driving divisions within the state GOP even deeper, and Ward is now pushing for the arrest of Republican election officials in Maricopa County if they refuse to comply with the auditor's demands, which include getting private server information from government officials, something that the sheriffs have called completely insane. Oh yeah, no, we're just going to give over our secret passwords for our routers to randos. Yeah, that'll work out just great. Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, again, Ward said earlier this week, there have to be consequences. There could be arrested people refusing to comply. Talk about handing over the asylum to the inmates. And that's exactly what this is. It is full on 100% clown show. Speaking of, by the way, clowns. Take a look.
I call on all people of Arizona to demand everyone to be friggin' arrested. All 5 of these board supervisors should be arrested immediately for not following court orders, for lying, perjury, for suppressing the evidence. These people are crooked. They need to go to prison right now until they give us the truth. Clint Hickman, I'm calling you out again, you idiot. Get off your butt and tell the truth. I called you at your office the other day, and you never even care what I say. You're going to prison, boy. I'm letting you know you're going to prison for a long time. We got you, boy. We got all the evidence. You're not going to get out of this, you stupid board supervisors. Bill Gates. At least you share a good name with another crook, Bill Gates. You know what? Had it. I'm going to drive down to Arizona. I'm going to arrest you myself, Clint Hickman. I'm going to come down there, and I'm going to film it. I'm going to arrest you live on YouTube. How you like that, boy? You idiot. You all are crooks. You ain't going to show up because you ain't got nothing truthful to say. You ain't following the orders. Arrest these people. Arizona, Arizona, Arizona Rangers, get in there, arrest them all now. Somebody that's not crooked, go arrest all 5 of these crooks right now and throw them in prison.
What else can I say? That's MAGA for you. Oof. But you know what's great?
How you like that, boy?
I got new sound effects.
You idiot.
Oh my god. Holy crap. Fun times. Fun times. Moving on. Let's go to the other stuff that's happening in conservative media. Oh. There we go. Got all the evidence. All the evidence! You idiot! You're going away for a long time. Shit. All right. They say that real muckraking journalism is dead. But what about holding our politicians accountable for bad parking? Well, apparently that's what Washington Free Beacon had done in an alleged so-called breaking exclusive on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Yes, a real example of good, hard muckraking journalism. Yeah, holding our politicians accountable. Yeah. Now, the article is titled, Spotted Socialist AOC's Tesla Parked Illegally Outside Whole Foods in Posh D.C. Neighborhood. And apparently this entire article blew open her alleged fondness for electric cars and groceries. Let me read some of this hard-hitting journalism, okay? Now, sources informed the Washington Free Beacon that the socialist congresswoman's white Tesla was parked illegally outside the Whole Foods near her posh apartment complex in Washington, D.C. One source familiar with the parking situation at the Navy Yard Whole Foods described the illegal parking job as quote-unquote pathetic because a grocery store offers free parking for its elite customers. The car blog Tire Meets Road speculated that Ocasio-Cortez most likely owns a Tesla Model 3 long range because it's one of the only electric vehicle models capable of making the trip from New York to D.C. and vice versa on a single charge, because you wouldn't want to have to stop, okay, for the multiple charge, okay. I'm just saying, the Tesla Model 3 long range has a retail price of between $46,000 to $59,000, and actually, in some places it retails as low as $30,000 if you get the base model. Additionally, a Free Beacon cartographical analysis determined that the Whole Foods, an elite grocery establishment owned by Amazon, is located within walking distance of the luxury apartment building where Ocasio-Cortez resides. Wow. Okay. So this this is the reporting, by the way, the caliber that you get from conservative outlets. Look what they're trying to do. Oh, elitist Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. We've got, I mean, she's got this really expensive car and she shops at Whole Foods. Okay, and wait, there's more. Apparently, she has a really expensive studio apartment. Quote, as reported in the Free Beacon, the posh residential complex where studios rent out for more than $2,000 a month, which, by the way, is the median in Washington, D.C. so it's not actually that expensive. It's one of the fanciest in Washington, D.C. Amenities include a climbing wall, several pools, racquetball courts, a golf simulator, a rooftop dog park, a steam room, multiple cycling studios, 2 types of massage rooms, and charging ports for electric vehicles. Oh, the horror! Oh my God! The horror. Total clown show. AOC derangement syndrome 101. One more. As if I haven't punished you enough. But I had to read it, and so now you're going to hear about it. The significance of the parking scandal remains to be seen. At the very least, it could undermine Ocasio-Cortez's credibility in her ongoing quest to transform the United States into a socialist paradise. Her policy advisor, Dan Riffle, wants to abolish billionaires. Yet the congresswoman appears to enjoy consuming the products of their capitalist ingenuity. Tesla, for example, is run by billionaire Elon Musk, as is Whole Foods, run by Jeff Bezos. Got him. Got her. You got her. It's the meme, everybody. They have successfully memed. Okay? It's that we should improve society somewhat. Yeah, you participate in society. Curious. I am very intelligent. They did it, everybody. Unironically, they did the cartoon. That's it. Parody has become reality. Holy shit. Now I gotta ask, is this a case of art imitating life or life imitating art? I'm just serious. Wow. By the way, this is their breaking exclusive. AOC lives in society, buys groceries, lives in an apartment, and drives a car. Wow! She claims to be a socialist, but she wears clothes and not a burlap sack or a barrel with straps on it. Curious, yes. Oh my God. The whole thing hurts my brain. It really does. For one, notice how they equate socialism with being poor. That's not what socialism means. Socialism is actually workers owning the means of production, i.e. public ownership of the workplace. Okay? Now, we have instances of that existing in the United States right now. Worker-owned cooperatives, which is about as close as you can get to pure socialism in a capitalist framework. And guess what? It works just fine. The people who work in those places they're not poor. They're working. They actually make a pretty decent salary. And again, a couple of weeks ago, I did a segment on Dan Price. Dan Price was a millionaire, owned a company, and he decided to forsake his millionaire salary and to pay his employees $70,000 a year as a starter wage. And then reduced his salary to the same. And guess what? They're doing really, really well. So, I mean, come on. Now, of course, every time you bring up the word socialism to a right-winger, they immediately counter with, but Venezuela! But what about Venezuela? They're eating dogs and foraging in trash. Venezuela is one of a handful of countries that, as a result of crippling U.S. sanctions, it's not doing so well. Plus, let's be honest, they're not exactly a great model as far as what their economy is based off of, fossil fuels. So they have deep oil reserves, and so their economy is kind of based off that. And they sort of had it structured in a way of using the proceeds from oil, which is inherently destructive, by the way, to the environment, but they tried to use the profits and the proceeds from the oil at least to raise people up out of poverty. Now, of course, you had issues of government corruption. We're ones to talk because our government's absolutely corrupt as well. But we don't have crippling sanctions against us either. And so, they're facing a lot of hardship, and a lot of it has to do with external factors. Not all of it, but external factors absolutely are incredibly important. A lot of, so-called capitalist nations don't really want to trade with a so-called socialist country. And again, that's kind of important. You need to have some sort of trade as well. And so in external factors, but at the same time, that's kind of a moot point because AOC isn't a socialist. She's a social democrat. That's it. Which basically is like somebody from Denmark. Okay, that's it. Capitalist, but with a generous welfare state. Those two things can coexist at the same time. By the way, having a Tesla, Elon Musk aside, it is an electric car, and electric cars are meant to cut down on emissions. Now, of course, if you couple that with, for example, alternative energy sources, wind, solar, etc., for use in the charging stations, you really can save a lot of emissions. That said, there are other problems with electric vehicles, rare earth materials, and lithium, et cetera, and the environmental impact of building those electric cars. But you can't really fault somebody for buying an electric car, especially when they're actually starting to get more and more affordable. And so that is a benefit. It is a benefit. Okay. And so that said, she's got a good reason to buy it. And it's not like it was an incredibly expensive vehicle. It's about the average median cost of a new car. And by the way, she also reportedly bought it as a result of, well, for one, she's able to afford a congressional salary. But two, really spurs people into buying private cars is because COVID was, in her case, because of COVID-19. So she's like, yeah, I normally take public transportation. Now, coronavirus, you got to socially distance, you got to stay away from people to stay safe, et cetera, et cetera. And look, there's really no problem with her owning a car. It's pretty ridiculous going after her for that. All right. Not only that, but you also have the weird obsession from these kinds of people that follow her around, that take pictures of her car, and all that weird stuff. Not only that, but you get the constant death threats from right-wingers and some on the supposed left. And it really makes public transportation for her a non-option. And then speaking of her car, by the way, the whole purpose of the story, or at least the alleged purpose, oh, look at how she illegally parked at Whole Foods with her Tesla. There's no evidence that she illegally parked. So, it's this entire thing is just some weird gotcha attempt for nothing. They're obsessed, and it's so fucking weird. And that's at a time, by the way, when the GOP, and this is like it's whataboutism, really to the extreme, the GOP is doing some pretty heinous things. They're blocking a commission to investigate the January 6th Capitol riots. You also have Gaza, by the way, under attack. You have Biden trying to sell Israel $735 million worth of missiles, weapons. AOC, by the way, opposes that sale. Then you get the Southern District of New York criminal probe into the Trump organization. You have Texas severely restricting abortion rights. We still have unaccompanied minors at the border. We still have climate change. And yet this is the right-wing breaking exclusive. More like y'all are broken and weirdly obsessed with one politician. And look, I'll be honest, I like AOC for policy reasons, and I like that she's a fighter. I also realize she's not a perfect person, and that's fine. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's a perfect person or a perfect politician. And you could disagree with her on some things, on some issues, and you can say, oh, I think she should push harder on this and push forward that policy. Totally fine criticisms. However, this is not substantive. This is bullshit. Total desperation. And so I want to share a couple of dunks on this article for some levity. One person says, AOC's ability to get ineffectually angry guys to beclown themselves remains impressive. Another said, breaking exclusive, people continue to stalk AOC and report on her doing inane things. Another wrote, while the right wing goes crazy over an alleged parking violation by AOC, Trump, his spawn, and his cronies are under criminal investigation for numerous financial felonies. Talked about that. Breaking exclusive. AFC owns a cool car and lives well within her means. Another person adds, I hit a curb last week and continuously park on or have over the lines. Make sure to get this breaking exclusive too. And even, by the way, Michael Tracy, king of all hot takes, like disastrous hot takes, horrible hot takes, actually had this one that wasn't so bad. He said this, to the Free Beacon, you guys are experts at making yourself look like idiots compared to AOC. When Michael Tracy clowns on you, oof, that's bad. And finally, here's one more. From a critic of AOC, by the way. I don't really like her or her politics, but what the fuck is this, bro? Nailed it. Conservative news, folks. Conservative news. Jesus. Wouldn't we be better looking at stopping the sales of arms to kill women and children and going after politicians trying to live? You would think so. But then again, politics is stupid. Stupid, but, necessary. Oy. All right. Let's see. You know what? I got to take a really, really quick break to get a drink. And so stay right here. We've got more stories. We've got Geraldo versus Dan Bongino. That's a fun story. And then we have congressional efforts to try to stop the sale of $735 million worth of arms to Israel. That's a really important story. And then we're going to go after, of course, the Texas governor, Greg Abbott, for signing an incredibly restrictive abortion ban. It's very important stuff coming up here next on the show. Stay right here, like and share. We'll be back in just a minute. Round the Nation.
There's insanity in the control room.
You idiot. How you like that, boy?
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. Waldorf Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. All right. So, before I continue, Tempedan, thank you for gifting a tier 1 sub. Do appreciate that, as well as 5 months. Nice. Thank you. Really appreciate that. It's one way, of course, you can help us by signing up and using your free sub on Twitch to help us out, as well as super chats. Let's see if I have any. I know I do. I just got to find it because YouTube likes to not show me my super chats. So I cannot read them. So I have to go and do a bunch of shit. Hold. LL. This is creepy. They know where AOC lives and shops. I fear for her safety. I do as well. That's the other thing. It's really, really, really scared. It's incredibly scary. All right. Anyway, let's move on. In a very strange series of events, I now find myself defending Geraldo Rivera. Now, recently, Geraldo's actually been on a tear, and he's been calling out the Biden administration's sale of weapons to Israel. He's also been calling for a ceasefire. In fact, he says that selling Israel weapons actually makes us complicit in an ongoing crime against humanity. Damn. That's incredibly strong language. Now, of course, Fox News doesn't like that. Bongino doesn't like that. Sean Hannity doesn't like that. The Fox News audience don't like that. And so he was first accused of parroting Hamas propaganda and then got into a very fiery argument with both Hannity and Dan Bongino. So now here's Geraldo first versus Sean Hannity. Take a look.
The stated charter that says and calls for the destruction of Israel. You don't support that, Geraldo, do you?
You know, Sean, it is shocking and outrageous to me that in all the discussions of what's happening in Israel, the fact that Palestinians are being killed at the rate of 15 or 20 times the death toll among the Israelis, including children, is absolutely
Geraldo, let me stop you.
It is abhorrent to me. The Palestinians are digging themselves out from under the collapse of their buildings.
How about the terrorist organization Hamas stop firing those rockets from hospitals and schools and densely populated areas?
Why don't we?
Because they're the ones that fired first. And if innocent people die, you blame the people that start the war.
There are dozens of Palestinian children dead. There are dozens of Palestinian children dead.
And whose fault is that?
With ammunition provided to Israel by the United States without even a demand for a ceasefire. I demand a ceasefire. I demand
that Israel win the war. Israel needs to win the war against terrorism and terrorists that are firing rockets at their people.
Let's kill all these children.
Damn. All right, so yeah, that at the end. Oh, but we gotta win. But they gotta win the war on terrorism. Oh, okay. Well, America's been at war with terrorism since what 2003? So roughly about 18 years. Pretty sure we haven't won. In fact, pretty sure we're not even close to winning. Because guess what? Wars on terror are never ending. That's kind of the point of fighting them for some people. Because they last forever, you're always going to have a need for weapons. You're always going to have a need for guns, bombs. You're always going to need to have, funding for, again, weapons systems. And so you've got these defense contractors that give some very generous donations, as well as you're able to, as a media figure, scare the crap out of people in order to watch you. So yeah, I mean, that's why they love this endless wars, and they love these wars on terror. And so that's what Sean Hannity, that's what his position is. More war, more terror, more destruction, especially, in places like the Middle East. It's horrible. So now that said, whose fault is it? But Hannity says, it's obviously the fault of Hamas. Yeah, they're the ones firing the missiles. Yeah, that's their fault. But actually, when you look into it, the actions of the Israeli government are to blame. Okay? Before this, it actually been about 7 years since a Hamas missile strike into Tel Aviv. Now, the actions that really triggered that was the forced removal of several Palestinian families from the neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah in the Gaza Strip. And of course, after that, following that removal, you had demonstrations, you had protests, which got cracked down on by Israeli security forces and the Al-Aqsa Mosque in East Jerusalem. And I'm not going to call it a clash. In that crackdown, over 300 Palestinians were injured, compared to 21 Israeli police forces. You could also point to the idea that this was part of a desperate distraction by corrupt Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to retain power by scaring the crap out of the people, by inflaming tensions with the Palestinians after his right-wing party once again failed to form a government. Now, about the rockets, by the way, Israel has the Iron Dome. Very, very few rockets make it into Tel Aviv, and that's a good thing. I actually like that rockets don't hit civilians. Now, the thing is, wouldn't it be nice if Gaza had one of those? But they don't. So every missile, every rocket launched by Israel, every airstrike is full force destruction compared to the very few that make it through the Iron Dome. So you're looking at two sides that are not even, that are not equal here. This is asymmetrical, these strikes. So as a result, every airstrike kills many more people on the Palestinian side. Okay? So now the two sides, again, they're not even here. And so to try to both sides the issue is kind of ghoulish when you think about it. And so at the end of the day, terrorism is not defeated by bombs and missiles. It's defeated by eliminating the reasons that people want to join terrorist groups like Hamas. You've got the issues of poverty, desperation, hopelessness, institutional hatred, religious extremism, that kind of stuff. And again, there's a lot more factors that get people who are desperate to join these militarized groups that are ultimately destructive to their own cause of peace. And look, if Palestine was not an open air prison, didn't have such high unemployment, low standard of living, they had some autonomy, that might do a lot to reduce the levels of terrorism. And a lot of that right now is being, blocked by Israel, who right now is running an apartheid state, which, by the way, helps Hamas get funding and recruits by keeping the people poor, desperate, and oppressed. One more video, by the way. This is where the situation. This is where the entire argument gets even more heated. Take a look.
Geraldo, you do this every time. This is such garbage, and I'm really getting sick of it. You play this emotional game with the audience and use your position of responsibility to put out misinformation and
stop
BS.
attacking
you did it
me,
on the
punk.
police thing.
Address the issue. Do you have the guts to address the issue and not address? This is not about me. You didn't come on the show to attack me. You came on the show to talk about the issue.
Because again,
do you have a point about the issue?
Using your position of authority.
I'm sick of you, Bongino. I'm sick of you.
That
You're a punk.
Geraldo Rivera does not understand that Hamas doesn't believe in Israel's right to exist. Hamas wants the Jews dead. And what does he do? The same thing with the police issue. He makes this an emotional thing, and he says, the Palestinian children. Of course we care about Palestinian children. You know the way we save Palestinian children? Is we incentivize the terror group Hamas to not fire rockets indiscriminately into Israel. And it would stop immediately. Your debate on, you are so misinformed on this, it's pathetic.
This current chapter of this ongoing violence started when Israeli cops raided the Aqsa Mosque in the old city of Jerusalem.
Get out of here.
It is one of the most sacred.
Just lying.
It is one of the most sacred places.
You don't know what you're talking about.
It is one of the most sacred places in the. Listen to this guy. This guy doesn't. Have you ever been? Have you been at war?
I've been there many times.
Holy shit! Based. Wow. So look, he's got the history, okay, and that's really important. Bongino kept saying, "Oh, you're lying, you're lying, you're lying." No, that's the actual history of what's going on, and that's what I mean when I call this than complicated, okay? Because there's a lot of history there. And right now, what's going on, this latest attack, these latest flare-ups, definitely could have been avoided had they not tried to remove those Palestinian families. Okay? Now, a couple of you said this. Let's see. I'm not Israeli. It's not my home country, but as a Jew, I feel like I'm being lumped in with those causing this, and I'm embarrassed and disgusted by what's happening. Look, here's the thing. That's not your fault. It's not the fault of Jewish people that this is happening. All right? It's also not a fault of the Palestinian people. You have Hamas and you have the right-wing Israeli government, and then you've got everything else in the middle, everybody in the middle, the innocent people in the middle that are ultimately being killed. More so, way more on the Palestinian side, but you've also had innocent Israelis that have been killed as well. And so, no, it's not your fault. Of course, you shouldn't be lumped in with those causing this. Again, that's not you. And again, anti-Semitic trope here. Jewish people, not a monolith. And it is a trope to lump them in as a monolith. And so if you're going to criticize the Israeli government, which is, again, militaristic and right-wing, as it is head by the right-wing party that right now is opposed to peace and uses that terrorism, by the way, from Hamas, because Hamas is no doubt a terrorist organization that has done some pretty awful things. They kind of have this codependency on each other. You see, like, I don't know if I can really kind of explain this very well, but this codependency, again, the terrorists need the oppression from the Israeli government, and the Israeli government needs the terrorists to continue the oppression. So it's just really this weird codependence here. And again, you've got innocent people, Palestinians and Israelis, that are getting caught in the middle of this. It's a horrifying situation. Why isn't the UN not doing anything? Because they can't. America, the United States, continues to block any sort of effort in enforcing a ceasefire. So, let's see. 1,400 years of extremism, and you want to blame the ones being attacked. Okay. That's weirdly, what is it? Islamophobic. Weirdly Islamophobic. Yeah, look, I agree with, what is it? Geraldo. I know, right? It's really strange. But sometimes when you're on it, you're on it. And he's right. And look, what we need to do, first of all, we need to stop selling weapons to Israel. And I've said this, I like to think that I'm pretty consistent with my stance on selling weapons to the world. We shouldn't be selling weapons to Saudi Arabia. We shouldn't be selling weapons to Israel. We shouldn't be the world's arms dealer. Not only that, but we need to stop blocking Palestinians from using the UN, for example, as they have tried to do, to get some of their human rights. We also need to condemn illegal Israeli settlements in these areas. Again, what essentially has been going on is that the government has been coming into Palestinian areas in Gaza and saying, "Hey, you, get out of your house." And they ask, "Why? What's going on?" "We're taking your house and we're going to give it to Jewish settlers." Illegal settlements, all by the declared illegal by the UN. But again, they can't do anything about it because the United States continues to block any movement on this, any condemnation of Israel. And so there's, again, you're getting this situation that continues to be inflamed. It's a horrible situation. It's a horrible situation. And so there needs to be a peaceful situation, but both sides actually have to be interested in doing peace. And I feel like, again, with that whole relationship that Hamas and Israel have of constantly needing to codepend on each other for their own political ambitions and their power ambitions, not going to stop. Oof. Oh, is that in the West Bank in Jerusalem? All right. Moving on. Senator Bernie Sanders is preparing to introduce a resolution on Thursday that disapproves of the U.S. sale of $735 million in weapons to Israel. Now, the resolution aims to halt the planned sale to Israel by the Biden administration of JDAMs, or Joint Direct Attack Munitions, and small diameter bombs. Now, many of these bombs, of course, have been used against innocent people in Gaza, killing many people, including children. Now, Senator Sanders said in a statement to the Post, quote, "At a moment when U.S.-made bombs are devastating Gaza and killing women and children, we cannot simply let another huge arms sale go through without even a congressional debate. I believe that the United States must help lead the way to a peaceful and prosperous future for both Israelis and Palestinians. We need to take a hard look at whether the sale of these weapons is actually helping to do that, or whether it is simply fueling conflict." Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Mark Pocan, Rashida Tlaib also introduced a similar resolution on Wednesday, opposing the sale of these weapons to the Israeli government. Ocasio-Cortez said in a statement, quote, "For decades, the U.S. has sold billions of dollars in weaponry to Israel without ever requiring them to respect basic Palestinian rights. In so doing, we have directly contributed to the death, displacement, and disenfranchisement of millions." This is objectively true. What's going on right now, and I know this might seem incredibly harsh, feels like ethnic cleansing to me. There are 2 million Palestinians right now who are living in the world's biggest open-air prison. That cannot stand. That is not good at all. Understand that everything is tightly controlled. Movement is restricted for Palestinians. The majority of people living there are young people. Why is that? That's because a lot of people, so many people have been killed, that you have a majority population of younger people. And so understand, like, I don't want to use the term ethnic cleansing loosely, but what you have is the Israeli government taking land from Palestinians to give to Jewish settlers, kicking people out of their homes. I mean, they say, well, we were here first, so we're going to come in and take your land. Well, understand that if any other country did that, the United States would call that a human rights abuse. I'm just saying. But since Israel is our top ally, well, that's okay. They can get away with it. Also, scary Muslims, Hamas using human shields, and all those excuses. But what we have in reality is an apartheid state terrorizing a minority population who is increasingly desperate. And as a result, there are those who lash out violently, and that's not good either. And of course, that is further used as a justification to bomb, dehumanize, destroy, and remove people that live there. So this is not good, and our money is going to fund that. And has funded that with no problem. Now, no one, before now, nobody cared. Nobody batted an eye. Nobody gave a shit. That is until, of course, people decided, oh, it turns out that what's going on here is not good. That's bad. And it's not just them, by the way. The situation has changed. People are actually starting to see some of the human rights abuses and some disturbing parallels between the far-right government of Benjamin Netanyahu and certain past fascistic governments. And honestly, I don't think most people want to walk down that road. At the end of that road, horrible things happen. And nobody wants that. Nobody paying attention wants to see this happen. And people are seeing what's going on now all over the political spectrum. You even have Geraldo. Geraldo is a self-proclaimed Zionist. He is now sounding the alarm with these weapon sales because that means the United States is complicit. In fact, here was some of that yesterday.
We have dozens of Palestinian children who have been killed in the last week with American bombs. I have no proposed solution to this conflict. I have no proposed solution. Better minds than mine. Maybe General Jack Keane can help. Been floundered, frustrated by this complexity. I know this, though, Martha, and I want our audience to, the fact that the United States of America is providing Israel many of the weapons Israel is using today to kill Palestinian civilians without even demanding a ceasefire. Tlaib is right. That makes us complicit in an ongoing crime against humanity.
Katie, last thought.
Geraldo, that is such a dishonest argument to make, to accuse the Israelis and the Americans of deliberately targeting civilians when we know, we have it on video, we've known this for decades, the Hamas deliberately places military targets in schools, in media buildings, in hospitals, and when the Israelis call them to say, we're going to bomb, we're going to bomb, we are going to, so you're justifying Hamas using human shields in order to make the argument exactly as you are. And you are saying exactly what the argument Hamas makes, which is Israelis kill civilians, which is
an Israeli F-16 going 500 miles an hour is going to kill civilians.
Hamas propaganda. You are repeating Hamas propaganda.
I am deeply experienced in that region. I am a Zionist. I am telling you how I feel. You shoot an artillery round from a cannon, from a tank, and you expect it to land only on the military version of
that's one point, Geraldo, that is valid, but
just one point. Everything else, though, totally valid. Yeah. Kind of based, and an incredibly complicated conversation as well. And so every once in a while, Geraldo surprises me because sometimes he's right. And as some people point out, there's actually been no evidence that there were actual Hamas targets in any of these strikes, especially when it comes to the AP building, right? With it was a building with the Associated Press and Al Jazeera. A media building was bombed by the IDF. Even Secretary Tony Blinken, who's an incredibly conservative, warmonger, essentially, is like, no, we couldn't find evidence of that. Sorry, we couldn't find evidence of what the IDF was claiming in this. So then why bomb the building? Maybe it's because they were covering some of the human rights abuses that were going on. Interesting. But understand that, this is kind of a sea change. Years ago, this conversation wouldn't have happened. Not on Fox News. The tide apparently has shifted. And look, maybe I'm too much of an optimist on this, all right? But the way that I see it, the way that Biden has governed, it could be that if there's enough pressure from his own party, he might actually pull it back and add some conditions to any weapons sale or even cancel a weapons sale. Like maybe adding a condition like a ceasefire. And you have support from Democrats to get a ceasefire and to, of course, not sell these weapons. You have Senator Chris Murphy, as well as Todd Young, released a bipartisan statement calling for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who is a staunch defender of Israel, signed on to the statement and told reporters that he wanted to see a ceasefire reached quickly, which, by the way, has caused the IDF to increase the frequency of their strikes. Before any sort of ceasefire is reached, they want to make sure to bomb as much as they can. So, yeah. I don't know how this is going to end up. Obviously, I want peace. Yes, I want peace, and I want to make sure Palestinians have human rights. I also want to make sure Israeli citizens and Palestinian citizens are both protected and that there isn't this gigantic conflict anymore. I don't know how to resolve this conflict. Which has been going on for a very, very long time. But we've got to do something. The status quo cannot stand. These human rights abuses, as well as the terrorist attacks, they got to stop. They have to stop. And again, even though I don't know what to do, At least you have people, progressives, Bernie Sanders, AOC, Tlaib, and the rest. They're on the right side, and they're sounding the alarm and saying, hey, we can't just let this continue to happen, or we're never going to have peace. And that, at least, is a good thing. Moving on. It's a lot of very heated commentary in the comments section today. It's I'm getting it from both sides, so I must be onto something, because everyone hates me today. All right, anyway. Let's get back to let's get off of the Palestinian stuff and what's going on over there, and head back to Texas. Members of the Party of Freedom and Small Government just signed the most restrictive ban on reproductive rights in years. Now, Texas Governor Greg Abbott on Wednesday had signed into law a bill that bans abortions as early as 6 weeks, and before many people know that they're pregnant, according to the Texas Tribune. Now, the legislation is Senate Bill 8, and it also lets just about anybody, randos, people with no connection with the person that gets the abortion, to sue abortion providers who look to perform the procedure after the time limit, which, again, is pretty much impossible to meet. Now, the bill bans abortion after a fetal heartbeat is detected, which can be as early as 6 weeks, but does not provide an exception for rape or incest. When asked about the lack of exceptions for rape and incest, Texas Senator State Brian Hughes, the bill's sponsor, told CNN, quote, "Let's do everything we can to hold people accountable who do something like that, to protect women from that. Let's harshly punish the rapist, but we don't punish the unborn child." Interesting. Here's the thing. You are punishing that child by forcing to have the mother to have a child that she doesn't want. That forces her to have ties to her rapist through that child. Or, by the way, if she chooses to, get the child up for adoption, because, the other argument is, well, that's okay. You should just give it up to adoption, or they can go through the foster system. Well, those situations, the foster system is deeply underfunded and can lead to some pretty horrible outcomes as well. It could also lead to good outcomes too, but you don't really know. But the whole point is, you're not really helping anybody if you're forcing someone to bring a child into a situation where they might not be wanted. So, there's that. And look, I'm pro-choice. I think it's pretty obvious. I'd rather women not be in a situation to be forced to give birth. I would also like for women to be in a situation where if they do get pregnant, that they would have the ability to choose to choose life. And that means, of course, setting up a situation, a social, like a government or government systems where you have childcare, where you have healthcare, where you have support systems in place for people who decide that they want to be parents. And so that's what I want to see. I want to see a country that is more friendly towards families, because the United States ain't. It's really not. And so and not only that, but of course, it's not my choice. I don't have a uterus. It's not my call. It's not my business what other people do with their own uterus. And so, again, the United States, not friendly towards families. Just the act of giving birth costs thousands of dollars. And if you don't have health insurance, you're screwed. Healthcare is incredibly expensive. Education, childcare. In total, it costs over $230,000 to raise a kid from birth to 18. Not to mention, we have a We have a little bit of an epidemic of school shootings that happen all the time as well. You have other factors, external factors, very valid reasons for people to choose not to be a parent. And that's when you even have the choice. Again, this bill, and this is why it's so insidious, it doesn't even give you an option if you've been raped. And it's also insidious because of the way the laws are structured. As Diana Lehman Mercado, executive director of Planned Parenthood Texas Votes, explains, quote, for a person with a normal menstrual cycle, that's only 2 weeks after a missed period, when you factor in the time it takes to confirm a pregnancy, consider your options, make a decision, schedule an appointment, and comply with all the restrictions politicians have already put in place for patients and providers. 6-week ban is essentially bans abortion outright. So they have basically tried to regulate it out of existence. And that's it. Then you add in the provision where any rando can sue anybody else. It's pure chaos. As the Washington Post notes, the provision was met by a pushback from the legal community. More than 300 Texas attorneys wrote a letter to lawmakers last month that raised constitutional concern about the bill's language. The coalition claimed provision weaponizes the judicial system in Texas, warning that people could be subjected to abuse and harassment through the legal system. Every citizen now is a private attorney general, Josh Blackman, constitutional law professor at South Texas College Law of Houston, told the Texas Tribune, you're going to have random people who are against abortion start suing tomorrow. And this, of course, this bill takes effect in September. That is deeply, deeply messed up. Furthermore, the move comes days after the Supreme Court announced it would hear a challenge on a Mississippi law that looks to ban abortions after 15 weeks. So, all of this is happening, coinciding with basically a gigantic assault on women's bodily autonomy and reproductive rights. And then what happens? What happens if Roe v. Wade is challenged successfully, overturns, and allows for the country to ban abortions again? Well, we're back to coat hangers and back alley abortions. Remember, this is not about being pro-life. This is about being pro-birth. This affects mainly working poor, many of whom happen to be Black and Latino. Rich white women, they've always been able to get abortions whenever they want. They're the ones that can have abortion on demand, literally. They have the means to go and fly somewhere where it's legal. Poor women, however, this is a way to keep poor women in poverty. Not allowing women bodily autonomy keeps them in abject poverty, keeps them from rising the social ladder, keeps them from having good careers, and of course keeps their family line poor. It is a way to keep people poor. It is a way to stop any advancement for people who are already underserved and apparently lower class. So this is horrible news, but it's everything that you would expect out of the Republican Party, the so-called pro-life party. All right. Anyway, that's all I have. It's a little bit of a tough show today, tackling the issues. Tough stuff. Okay. Let's see. A lot of disagreement. Gabby Mathis says, no money for Israel. Aaron Pimentel says, always rise to the occasion. A quote from our good friend, Rear Admiral Jack Meoff. So, yeah. Pro-life when in the womb. Yes, and as soon as you're born, they tell you to F off. And that's what happens. Pro-life my ass. All right. Well, jeez. Tough show. Thank you for tuning in. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Or, of course, hate it if you hate it. I guess it's still engagement for me, so whatever works. Till then, we'll see you tomorrow. Tune in, 4 p.m. Eastern, right here. We'll figure out who to raid here. On Twitch, let's see. Looks like the Antifada, serfs, aristocracy. Those are some. I think I said we'd do an Antifada raid yesterday, so I think we'll do that. So let's start that. Again, everybody go there, Antifada based. All that wonderful stuff. And we'll see you all tomorrow. You have a good night. Love you all. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation.
Dumps. Big, massive dumps. I like my meat. I got my meat.
Who's got a hammer?
Please splash.
How you like that, boy?
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.